Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unearth with Shelly Hughes podcast. I'm Shelly Hughes. Today we have a wonderful guest that I'm super excited to have here. This is Gina Lizzo. She is the managing editor of Mainline Today magazine and The Hunt magazine.
People forget that, so thank you.
No, The Hunt is very important. I think it's like, I love those niche magazines because you get so much gold out of those. You just know your readers are so engaged.
Yes.
Right?
It's a very different feel.
Yeah, very different feel. Instead of, Mainline Today, there's so many different people reading and different kinds of people that it's a very different vibe, I'm sure. But this is the Unearth with Shelly Hughes podcast. In this podcast, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of running a business. I love to talk about the wins, the losses, the epic fail of just what it takes to build a profitable, passionate brand. Whether you're a business owner or you're building a brand as the managing editor of a really successful magazine or plural magazines. We actually just finished an interview for Mainline Today. Do you want to talk about the article that you're writing and we can kind of go from there?
I love how I interviewed you and now we kind of switch it up.
Yeah,
but and it's always weird for me to be on the other side of this because usually I'm the one with the notebooks and questions. But so we did talk about work-life balance. My piece is for grasp on balance isn't always 50-50. And I wanted that perspective from you because a lot of people, I think you see online all the time that people are like, you can have it all. You can do your 9 to 5 and then come home and be the best mother and then start all over again the next day. And I don't think it's like that. And I think you have a great perspective on that, especially having your business in your backyard, when to turn that off, when to be mom, when to be wife. I think you have really great ideals around that don't get out there as much because we're too focused on the perfect on Instagram.
So yeah, I think work-life balance is talked a lot in the entrepreneurial space as well. But what I see and, the conversation we just had about, my take on work-life balance and how there really is no such thing as balance. And especially when you start having kids and much more responsibilities and things like that. But one of the downfalls that I see is something we talked about called self-help burnout.
Especially this time of year.
Beginning of the year, January, New Year's resolutions. And, you're a few years younger than I am, but even MySpace was super authentic, right? Like there was no pretty pictures on MySpace, right? And then Instagram became a little bit more highlight reel-esque. Then Snapchat came and it kind of like lowered those expectations for that highlight reel. But I think something that is really challenging for you, especially as a young managing editor, is interviewing so many people. That's your job and writing about them. But it's literally, they're at the best of the best, showing up with a full face of makeup on. They are scripted and prepared to talk to you about whatever topic that you're discussing.
Right.
And I feel like your job is like talking to people on their highlight reel.
Yeah.
And so what does that do, or what did that do for you? How is that kind of challenging?
I think I kind of started running really fast and then crashing and burning with that. And what I mean by that is when I first got started in this position, it was super inspiring and I was on energy overload because I was meeting all these inspiring people and getting all these amazing stories, and you're probably interviewing them because of a highlight reel. You're probably interviewing them because they did something amazing, and it's not always real. Like it's just the best of the best. And while that was really inspiring, eventually I kind of hit the wall on that because I am someone who struggles with raging perfectionism. And I was seeing all the time people at their best. I was seeing they're perfect. And then you start, as everybody does, and especially women, you start to compare. And you're seeing these people and you're thinking, why am I not there? Why am I not perfectly put together? I mean, there was even a time where I went through a phase where I was like, I need to wear expensive perfume all the time. And I need people, like all these women that I'm meeting, they have the best makeup and they have the best clothes. And I need to redo my whole wardrobe and I need to get all new makeup and, get a crazy hairstyle. So I think I hit the wall on that. And that was kind of a downfall of my mental health. And something I always remember relating to what I call my rock bottom is that you had said, like, oh, you hit your rock bottom. Congratulations. It's only up from here. And I think about that all the time. Yeah. It's the kind of like the main, what I remember about that time in my life. And then from there on, I just wanted to be authentic. And I try really hard through my social media to be authentic. And I'm hoping that through my authenticity, I can inspire other people and make them more comfortable. And also through some of the questions that I ask them. Like, I'm not just going to ask you, what are the positives of this? How has this been great for you? I want to know how it's been bad for you. What are the negatives of this? You know, we talked a little bit today, like, yeah, you have your home office in your backyard and that's amazing. But are there ways you kind of wish were different? So I think that's a little bit like, yes, it's wonderful. And yes, it's amazing. And I'm so grateful for the people I get to meet and the things I get to do every day. But there's a managing of expectations there as well. And I hope through my work, I can inspire other people that, yes, these people are amazing, but you know, it's not just Zoom success. There's a little bit of up and down. And that's really what I want to highlight.
I love a good rock bottom.
I know you do.
And there's different kinds of rock bottoms. This is so bad. I've never admitted this in real life. There is an amazing, I know he's on Facebook, but I think he's on Instagram as well. It's a photographer, and he has a channel on YouTube and all these different platforms called Soft White Underbelly. And he interviews, he has the most raw interviews of people in Skid Row. People who have had abuse in their family, like, and it's Soft White Underbelly is, I mean, I think it's just a brilliant name for his channel because it gets to just the raw and like vulnerable stories that many of us are so privileged to not even we can ignore those, right? And so when we talk about rock bottoms, like, yes, there's like true rock bottoms, but he talks about rock bottoms as well as like, this is a time, like, congrats, like you got there. Now what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Right. And what I imagine rock bottoms, and I always think of rock bottoms as an opportunity. Like, you're ignoring this problem, you're ignoring it until you hit rock bottom and everything implodes on you.
Mm-hmm.
You are forced to make a change.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we're calling it rock bottoms, but it could be like a panic attack. It could be a mental breakdown, like whatever that is, mm-hmm. right? And you're ignoring this thing that had to change for weeks, months, years until it's forcing you to make a change, or else you physically can't go on any longer.
Right.
Which the goal is to recognize when things have to change before you hit your next rock bottom.
Yeah.
Right. That's really the goal. You might hit like 2 or 3 before you're like, like, I recognize this pattern in myself. Let's make this change. So what did that look like for you? Like, what were you doing? Maybe not even specifically, but like, what did you feel like you were doing that you were ignoring something you had to change?
I think there's so many aspects that played into it. It's mental health and physical health, but mostly mental health. I'm a huge believer that where you are mentally affects your physical health. Like, I just got over being sick for a week, and it was probably, somebody said to me, you know, it's probably your body telling you something's not right. Like, you should sit down, take a minute. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I just come off the holiday season. I was running everywhere, all over the place, all the family expectations and whatnot. So it was definitely needed downtime. But it definitely looked like I had not taken care of my mental health in any way whatsoever. And it was interesting because if you looked at my life on paper, it was, this should be perfect. This should be working out. You should be 100% happy. But I really, in this time, I learned about energy, and my energy was not where it should have been. I was getting things done to get them done, I wasn't living in a purposeful, intentional way. And that's where I really learned about energy. So I read this book called The Amazing Power of Deliberate Intent. And it was all about your energy. For example, there was a chapter on money. And if you live in this mindset of, I don't have any money, how am I going to pay this bill? What am I going to do? You're not going to have money. It's not going to flow to you. But if you live not in that scarcity mindset, like it'll come, money comes to me, it's fine, you'll find that your life turns around from that. So I remember reading that chapter specifically and going to bed and being like, okay, money comes to me, everything's fine. And in the morning, I woke up to 2 texts from my bank, like $72 deposited, $50 deposit. And it was probably an Amazon return. I refuse to look into it. I don't want to know.
Not important.
No. But it was just, okay, so not living in that scarcity mindset. And I was doing that in every aspect of my life. So turning that around and getting my energy right. I always give this kooky analogy. Have you ever played Mario Kart?
Yeah, of course.
So, when you line yourself up behind the car in front of you and you get this little burst and you go a little bit faster, that's how I feel being aligned in my energy. And when I kind of fall off track, I lose that luminous, whatever you want to refer to that as. But so then I can recognize it in myself now and feel, okay, energy needs to shift, not living in the right energy, not having the right mindset. And that was the biggest thing, I think, in building back from my rock bottom, taking care of me, taking care of my mental health, and really figuring out how I wanted to live, like getting rid of those expectations of perfection and, realizing that I do have a platform. This is what I want to do with that platform. I want to help other people get rid of their perfectionism and live authentically and be themselves that way. So kind of really figuring out what my purpose was, what I wanted to do, being intentional about that really kind of brought me back up.
A few key things you're saying here. One is, and what we mentioned before, recognizing when you are starting to feel like you're on the downward slump. Because I think that is so hard too, because I've said this before on the podcast and other things, that so many times we confuse being busy for being productive.
Yeah.
And we're like this hamster on a wheel, and we're like, okay, things are fine, things are fine, things are fine, things are fine. And one of two things happen is if you keep being busy, you either ignore the problems, and then the problems start building up, and then all of a sudden the wheel pops off the hinge, and you're like rolling away into the depths of your rock bottom, right? That's one way that's happened to me in the past. The other way is you're busy, you're busy, you're busy, you're busy. You're kind of ignoring like the big picture, and all of a sudden 5 years later, you're in basically the same spot as you were when you started running on that hamster wheel, because you confused busyness for like true productivity and focusing on the big picture and your goals. And so I think that goes back to the work-life balance and like the hustle culture that, I really reject in a lot of ways. Is hustle culture is all about like going and going and going and going. And I think, that's, first of all, not feasible for the majority of the population, especially women, because we have to really be very conscious of like our ebbs and flows and our energy throughout the month, where like a man, like he has a 24-hour energy cycle. So like he reboots every single day, right? Yeah. A lot of women don't have that. And I think there's such power behind that, because, instead of us just like going and going and going and going, we have time that we can reflect. And that was a big goal of mine in 2024, is putting intentional time for reflection in my schedule, because it will force me to pause and being like, am I being busy? Am I ignoring something that I shouldn't be ignoring? But when we're like on that cycle and we're trying to keep up with everyone else's highlight reels around us, we don't take time to do kind of a self-assessment.
Yeah. And something I'm really trying to work on now that kind of came along as a byproduct of my perfectionism and wanting to go and hustle, girl boss, all that stuff. I would kind of punish myself for taking a break. Like if I took an hour and scrolled on my phone or read a book, I would go to bed at night and think, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. Like you had so much to do and you took time. How dare you? You shouldn't have done that. You're so lazy. You're so unproductive. You're a loser. Like I would spiral into that. And now I'm trying to acknowledge, like, yeah, you know what? I did lay on the couch for 3 hours yesterday and watch Gilmore Girls. I did that. And it's okay. My body needed that. I wasn't feeling productive. I wasn't feeling like I could show up as my best self in the moment. I needed to do that. And now I can show up as my best self. So letting that be okay is something I'm still not 100% there. I'd say I'm about 75% there, but that's something really big for me this year is letting that be okay and acknowledging, something they don't teach us, and not to go too far into this, but they don't teach you in school ever to track your cycle. And when I learned about that at the end of last year, I learned that, yeah, there's a week where I feel not productive, and that's okay. Like, I can't fight my body on that. I just need to let it be.
Even if it has nothing to do with like females and menstrual cycles specifically, men go through this too. Imagine like how many hours we've wasted trying to get a project done in an unproductive mindset when we could have just closed our computers, gone for a walk, watched 3 hours of Gilmore Girls, woke up the next morning, felt amazing. We would get the same project done in probably 20 minutes that would have taken us 5 hours to do on an unproductive day.
Yeah. Especially when there's a result at the end of it. Like with my writing, I need to be in the right headspace to do that, or my article is going to be crap.
Yeah.
I really need to be my best self, in my best energy, where I feel comfortable, when I feel comfortable, the right setting. There's a lot of things that go into writing that article. There's been so many articles I've sent to my editor and been like, I don't like this. Like, let me know what you think. I think I should change things. I don't like this. But there's some I sent to and I'm like, this is good. I know this is good. So I think, and those ones that I thought were not good, it's because I was like, just get it done, just get it done, just get it done, and not paying attention to myself and my energy level and being in that right energy.
I was just talking to a client of ours, the Spot magazine, they're another digital magazine, and I was just chatting with her, and we were talking about that, how, sometimes when you just have so much on your plate and you're just getting things done to get them done, it's going to be crap work, right? So how do you combat that, right? Number one is energy levels, and like really going 100% when you're feeling 100% and not doing it when you're not, because again, you're going to be wasting so much time, and you could very much be utilizing that time more efficiently by rebuilding and reflecting and rebuilding your energy, right? The other thing is, what are some things that you can just cross off your list that can be automated, that can be the AI, you can utilize AI, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're seeing your to-do list is a mile long, what are the top 3 things on that to-do list that's going to move the needle? Don't worry about anything else until those top 3 things are done. Because if you're trying to get, and that's something that I really had to work on, is making my to-do list very small and realizing that I have quarterly goals, not daily goals, right? So I have all these goals for the year. I'm not going to get majority of them done until quarter 3 and 4, because I have the things that's going to move the needle the most. Those are going to get done quarter 1 and 2. I feel like sometimes what happens when we goal plan, we're like, oh, I have all these ideas. I'm going to get all this done. Like my to-do list is super long. And then just to put that little check next to each mark, you just rush to get things done and you're not happy with the result.
Yeah. Right? I actually noticed I got a productivity planner based off your recommendation, and it actually for each day has 3 priorities and then other tasks. And I've started to fill that out the night before. Like I've started to use it. I write in it right before I go to bed, and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for from that day, or some wins from that day, some things that could have been better. Really kind of using it as a journal, I guess, but in less complete thoughts, because I do enough writing complete thoughts. But, and then I look to the next day and I fill in what are those 3 priorities and then those other tasks. And that has really helped me with that. What are those 3 things that are going to really push me forward tomorrow versus here's 20 things that need to be done. And I've had planners that were like, here's all your tasks.
Oh my gosh.
This is a much better way to live.
And it's realizing those tasks, the deadline really does not have to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
That deadline could be 3 months from now. And that's okay.
And that's a perfectionism thing too, I think.
So what are some things you said, if your mental health is off, then everything kind of comes crashing down. What are some things that you do to make sure that your mental health is top notch?
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is strictly because I'm a writer, but reading to me is huge. Just, I'm not a big traveler. Somebody says to me the other day, no, you travel through books. And I was like, yes, exactly. But starting my day reading, ending my day reading, and whether that's a magazine, if it's a book, it's just something that's inspiring me. I think that being inspired keeps me in my energy, and reading is something that gets me there. And then I think having some space for my perfectionism, realizing I can take an hour and watch a show right now. I can take 3 hours and watch a show right now. I can take a nap at 2:00 in the afternoon if my body is really calling for that. So being more in tune with my physical needs in that way, I think there's a huge, especially this time of year, there's a huge diet culture. And you know what? Sometimes I really do want a Reese's cup, and sometimes that's going to put me in my energy, and acknowledging that it's not going to be perfect all the time. Your body craves different things. Your body wants different things. Being in tune with my body in that way. Finding physical activity. For me, it's pickleball. For me, it's not being in the gym and running on the treadmill for 20 minutes. It's a sport. It's a game. Finding what works for me. And maybe it's not a Pilates class, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely not. And so when you read, are you reading? That's really interesting. Are you reading to shut your mind off, or are you reading to get inspired for work?
If it's a magazine, it's getting inspired for work. If it's a fiction book, it's reading to shut the mind off. So I will sometimes read a magazine right before I start to work to get that inspiration kicking, but I will rarely sit down with a fiction book before I start to work because it makes me not want to work.
So you really don't read magazines like at night before bed?
Not really.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that would be a mode to get you into, we talked about our workday startup ritual, right? Like reading a magazine makes a ton of sense for you to be in your workday startup ritual. Like even if it's not an entire magazine, but it's like an article or a half an article.
Yes.
But what kind of books do you like to read kind of at the end of the day to shut your brain off?
I love a good fiction book with a strong female lead. I'm trying to get away from the romance stuff because I feel like those romance novels are another unrealistic expectation. And they usually, it's going well, it's going well, it's going well. And then there's a big attachment and there's running away and then it's fine again. And that's not realistic for any relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship or professional. It's not realistic for anything. So I'm trying to get away from those and read more so about people's journeys or something that's not romance geared, but definitely fiction. Or sometimes to start reading, I will do more of a self-help business kind of book, but that's more of a in the morning thing, not so much as a in the middle or getting ready to go to bed at night thing.
I want to go back to the people that you interview. Can you tell me just broadly, the people that you interview, what are they like? What vibes do they give? And how much of it do you call BS?
Oh, okay. Highly motivated, successful, highly ambitious. I would say good bit are put together, and I appreciate the ones who aren't put together and admit that. Sometimes people say to me, and I think this is really a good indicator. I mean, you said this earlier, like, oh, sorry, I'm rambling. And I always say, no, when you ramble, I get the best stuff. Like when you're giving me, if I ask you a question and you have your 3 concise sentences planned, that kind of gives me nothing. And people think that's what I want. So a lot of people will ask me for the questions in advance. I really don't like to do that because then I get those short, here's my 3 to 5 sentences, and then there's an awkward silence because I want more, and it's like pulling teeth. But the rambling, and that shows people not maybe like picture perfect out there 10 out of 10 because it's just word vomit, and that's what works the best for me. It's interesting on when I call BS because I need to use it. So
you need to use it anyway.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I kind of think, well, this is how they want to represent themselves. Part of my job is being a messenger, and, how they want to represent themselves is how they're going to represent themselves. I can't do anything. I can through my questions. Like I will typically go into with a list of 5 to 7 questions and in the process of that interview, it will evolve to 10 to 12 because things come up in the interview that I want to talk about. And I can try through those questions to kind of pull out. And I will say I'm pretty successful about that, which helps with the calling BS because I can get them being a question that I didn't send in advance. It kind of gets them to stop and think and turn on the reel, which I love to see people that you can see it in people's faces when they go from their script to here, this is real. I love that.
What do you think that makes people more comfortable or less comfortable really opening up and getting off script and being a little bit less highlighty?
I think that really depends on the person. Like, I think someone like you aspire to that. You don't mind that. You're not afraid of that. Other people, and I find this more with big corporate executives, they seem to get a little angsty about it. But then I hope that through my authenticity, I can inspire. It's okay. Calm down.
Yeah.
It's fine.
What kind of interviews do you just love doing?
I honestly love interviewing business owners because I like to hear how they got their start, especially when I can lean into that. It wasn't A to B. It was kind of A to D to F to G to X to B. So I think business owners are super inspiring to me. We do our big Power Women feature every year, and that's always like a energy overload in the best way because you have 20 powerhouse women and I feel like I walk away from those interviews feeling so inspired. And those are the ones that are really memorable to me. When I get something out of it personally, I know I can give my readers something good because I benefited personally.
So it's just selfish. Your whole job is just selfish ploy. Oh, I would interview this person because I think my readers will love it. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I get a little skeevy when I think about like women.
Yes, I love that about you.
But that might also just be something that I have to work on,
No.
right? But like when I all throughout school and things like that, and I talked about this in the Girl Boss episode, I always valued male characteristics over masculine characteristics over feminine characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
I was not the most empathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
I was not the most nurturing person. I was the get shit done person. I was I was even like I was assertive. I put myself out there and, I really focused on developing those masculine characteristics from a very early age. And I don't know why. I probably could dissect that and I probably should. But even to this day, to be completely honest, I got the email saying like, I want Power Woman. I was like, oh.
I expected that.
And Julie was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where this question is going, but I really want to get your insight on like, how do we celebrate women in business without it being like, again, if we're talking about women in business again, how, and am I just being like a Scrooge by thinking that? Like, I would love to get your insight on that.
It kind of makes me want to flip the question around and say, why are those traits specifically masculine? Like, why is it not okay for you why is a man who's nurturing feminine?
I don't think, I think that there are just like traditional masculine and feminine characteristics. Like it all goes back to biology.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, and that is another thing that, I've gone to, female, themed, like fireside chats and like panels. And all they talk about is like, they don't talk about biology. They don't even mention biology. They talk about how there's a glass ceiling and they talk about how with the pay gap and they talk about like all these things. And I'm like, can you please just mention that we have to bear children and that's the reason for a pay gap? Can we just mention that, yes, a lot of times there's a pay gap because females a lot of times go towards more rocket scientists, right? Because many times let's just talk nature for a second. These soft careers require more feminine characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, nurturing. Like teachers, for example, right? Teachers are paid crap. They should be paid a ton more because they have a lot of responsibility, like for our nation's future, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to be a teacher, you have to be very empathetic. You have to be very nurturing. You have to be very loving, right? And those are all very feminine characteristics because we have to raise and grow children.
Yeah.
So yes, biology wise,
I agree with that.
Like
100%.
there are feminine characteristics. Masculine, they are the ones that have that 24-hour cycle. They're the ones that can get up, hunt, and feed their family and come home, right? They can be the ones that don't eat for a week because they're out on a hunting trip, right? Females can't do that. So I think that's something that is not talked about enough in this like female women in business thing of like, oh, woe is us. We don't get paid as much. Oh, woe is us. We're not looked at. But here's the thing. As a business owner, I'm going to get so canceled. But if I can totally see if I'm a hiring manager or let's say I'm a business owner and let's say it's a 20-person business. Let's say it's a 15-person business, right? And I'm looking at these two people. One person is a man. He's 32. Yeah, he might have a family, but he shows up. He's in a suit and tie, and he's like, I love my job. I love what I do. I love my work. I'm ready to work for you. The next interview is a woman who comes in who's 5 months pregnant, and they're the exact same person. The resumes are the exact same. It's illegal for me to say that I would hire the man. And part of me is just like, yeah, like that sucks for us. Like that just happens, right? Some people say there should be government policies in place to like help women because they do have that natural bias that just happens because of biology, because, they are probably going to be the default parent when their kids are sick. They're probably, right? So I think there's and the best businesses are the ones that can look past that can realize that, yes, she probably is going to be the default parent. She is probably going to be the one over her husband that is going to have to leave at 3:30 to pick up her kids, or has to leave in the middle of the day because her kid's sick at school. But that's okay because diversity of thought is so important in this business that I'm going to hire her anyway. Even though I know she's not going to be probably like the most consistent employee, she's probably going to be one of the most productive.
I think we lack a major understanding of that biology. Like when you just said like difference of thought, we majorly lack that understanding of biology, and it's not really thought about, but because of those traits, they're all valuable in different ways to different industries, and it's not, I feel like that's just not like a mainstream thing. I wish it was, but it's not.
And all we talk about is the result of biology, not the biology itself. And so I think that's why I am very hesitant to like, I'm not a certified woman in business because I resist that. I'm like, what makes my genitals have anything to do with my business?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It doesn't mean you're offering a better product. It doesn't mean...
Why should I be given something because I was born without a penis? Right? So that's something that like, now that I'm in my 30s, like in my teens and 20s, I was reject, like, not healthy. Right? And now in my 30s, I'm like, okay, how can I embrace the femininity that is so important in running a business? I mean, Mainline Today just wrote an article about how in medical practices, female-run practices have better patient outcomes, better patient satisfaction, and is an overall better run practice than male-run medical practices. And I think that's the stage that I'm in now, is like, okay, like get over my whatever I went through as a child, I guess, right? Of like rejecting feminine characteristics. I think because my mom was always very independent. Like my mom didn't get married until she was almost 40. Didn't have me until she was almost 40. I was the firstborn. And so she had her entire life. She had her entire career before she became a mom. And I probably have a little bit of that. So I guess I have to learn from you, and I have to learn from people around me of like, how can we embrace this topic without it feeling like, ugh, icky.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's a way, I think there's a very, I don't want to say a very fine line, but there is a line between you need to understand your biology. And I think that's huge. Like, I don't discredit that at all. I think more people need to understand that. But I think it's also, I mean, there are some women out there who aren't nurturing. I think that's fine. Like, I think you really have to lean into who you are as a person. And I don't discredit that biology thing at all, because I totally agree with that. But I don't love the idea of, oh, that man is nurturing, he's feminine, you know?
But then it goes back to androgyny, right? It's the goal of having both feminine and masculine characteristics. It's not going all in one direction. And I think that goes a lot back to the work-life balance thing where, you know, you have to choose what you want your end goal to be. And then what does the lifestyle look like to get there? And are you okay with that lifestyle?
Yeah.
So if like I said in our interview before, like, you know, less than 5% of businesses make $1 million. Less than 1% of businesses make $10 million. And both of those are in like it's so few businesses.
I never knew that.
But you have to choose. You have to choose. It's a choice, right? If I want to make, you know, $75,000 in a year, and I want to be home with my kids every day, like that's a choice. And that choice is amazing because I need to hire people like that, right? I need to hire employees like that. But it's almost like if you are, you know, if I had this analogy before, if you are a swimmer and you want to be an Olympic athlete, but you only really want to swim like 2 or 3 hours in a week, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about like work-life balance and energies and things like that, I think we have to just make a really intentional choice of where we want to end up. What is the process going to look like to get there? And are we okay with that lifestyle? And if we're not, then we're just making a goal that's never going to get hit. Right?
Yeah. I think that's huge in managing expectations too, like setting what your lifestyle design is, and that's how you get to your balance, because yours is different than mine, it's different from his, it's different from hers, it's from theirs. Like, it's fine. Like, there may be women out there who family is not a glass ball to them, and they want to be in that 1% of $10 million companies.
Totally.
That's fine. That's
and they find amazing nannies, and their nannies are like part of the family. Or I know women who like hire their husbands for their business, you know, so their husbands don't have to work anymore. I know someone who, you know, they're involved in a lot of like rental properties. And so the husband's a stay-at-home dad and she's a teacher because they really don't need, like, that's their lifestyle design. Like, that's how they wanted to design their lifestyle. And, you know, I think there comes challenges with that when it comes to like gender expectations. Yeah. And, you know, the little intricacies and nuances of that engagement, right? That are abnormal. And can potentially make some people, if they're not really comfortable in their own skin, feel less than or not what they should be doing. But yeah, that's again, something that I'm really working on, and I'm leaning towards people like you and, you know, people who are preaching this in a more authentic way and not the highlight reel way of like, look at me, I have a vagina. Oh, by the way, I have a business. Yeah. Like that those two things to me are should not be in the same story.
Motherhood and business ownership is mutually exclusive either. I think you can do both, but like you said, you design your lifestyle. You know that your business isn't going to be a $10 million business. That's not what you want it to be.
Not right now.
Yeah.
When my kids get a little bit older, I would love it to be.
Right.
But like, that's not my expectations right now.
And that's another thing too that I think people don't credit. Your lifestyle design can change.
Yes.
Like, what I want right now does not have to be what I want in 10 years, and that's fine. You know, I think we give a lot of credit for, this is a dream life, I need to live it right now. And it's not. Like, that's another thing that needs to lose the expectation.
And I think that's where reflection comes in too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your vision can change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people think like this mission, this vision, whether it's for your business or your life, it has to be static because you learn. Like when we were planning for 2025, I talked about those software updates.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you in the beginning of the year think was truth
Mm-hmm.
that now you realize was not true this whole time?
Yeah.
And so if you are a managing editor, right, your vision is to become an editor.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's your vision today.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you meet someone along the way and they give you this whole other perspective
Mm-hmm.
of what your life could look like. I think it takes really intentional reflection time to be able to be like there's this thing in the back of my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm going to ignore because this is on the path I'm on. And taking that reflection time to be like, what was that? Let me break that down a little bit. Is that actually maybe what I want?
Mm-hmm.
And being okay with making that shift of something that you like thought you were always going to grow up to be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of society pressure there too, because I think if you ask a college student, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she says to you, a stay-at-home mom. Maybe not for you, but most people's first reaction is, ugh.
Mm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of society pressure on that. I had a friend who did an interview for a job and they told her that if you want to be a hustler and you want to be a go-getter, come here. If you see yourself starting a family, don't stay where you are. And it was kind of like I do want to be a mom. That's the most important thing in the world to me, but I also do love my career. And I don't have a doubt in my mind that when it comes time for me to start that family, I will learn that balance, whether I will learn what my glass balls are. And I think that's okay. Like, I don't think that makes me any less. My 3 hours on the couch watching Gilmore Girls yesterday, I don't think that makes me any less of a go-getter or an achiever. It doesn't make me lazy. Just things change.
No, but I think it's definitely the responsibility of the company to tell you that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because, like, nothing against, like, where you are versus, like, your friend and where they possibly would be going. But most likely, if you said, no, you're absolutely right, I'm not going to have kids, this is going to be my top priority, most likely, in about 10 years, they're going to be, quote, higher than you professionally. And that goes back to that choice you have to make.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you're okay with not being up here, but you're here, then that's totally okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference between a $1 million company and, you know, most companies don't even make $500,000 in a year. The majority of companies, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's an insanely low amount of money per year that they make. But it's all a choice.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter which one you choose. Both are perfect choices if it makes sense for you.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I don't think we talk about that enough.
And you can both be ambitious. But there's levels of ambition.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
We don't want 100 Elon Musks because that would be crazy. Like, rocket ships would be going all over. And that's not cool.
Right.
But anyway, well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
This is always fun for me, like, be on the other side of it.
Yeah, I know. You interviewed me and now I interview you.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And I love to get to talk to you.
Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you being here as well. Gina, tell us where we can find you. Where's your story? Where you hang out?
Yeah. Best way to get in touch with me, ironically, is through Instagram. I hate to say that, but I feel like Instagram is the new LinkedIn. Like, nobody anymore. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Instagram. But it's Gina Lizzo _ on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email at glizzo@mainlinetoday.com.
Cool. Thanks, guys. If you like this episode, please rate and review down below. It really helps these conversations get in the ears of people who really need to hear it. And I would love to hear more about topics that you'd like to listen to. So please shoot me a DM and let me know what you think. But appreciate it.